Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Jennifer Aurianne DaRe, who is the CEO of Atn Entertainment. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Thrilled to have you and to get into it. So let's start just maybe with a quick overview. What is Atn Entertainment?
So ATN, it stands for All Together Now Entertainment, and it actually is, it's morphed into the entertainment part because I used to manage and work with musicians, bands, and stuff like that. So I had ATN management. And then when I got into the actor side, I decided to, just allow for a larger umbrella if that were going to be the case. So made it into entertainment. But yeah, we manage actors, writers, directors, producers, and we do manage some musicians, but in that case, they're actors first or half and half. So I don't have any just strictly musicians any longer.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to get into what inspired you to do this business, and we'll get into that later. But for starters, let's go back to Jennifer as a little girl. Just give some kind of context, where you grew up, only child. Did you have siblings? What were you like as a kid?
Okay. So it's a pretty different story than most. My parents and another couple helped to start a boarding school in Oregon. And so I was there. My parents worked there, and I was there from age 4 to 17. We had about 3,500 acres of land. There was horseback riding and, mud and ponds and running around in the forest. And so that was an amazing, I would not trade that for the world. It was amazing. So I grew up in Oregon. In a small town called Sheridan outside of Portland, about an hour and a half outside of Portland. What kind of kid was I? I was very tall. So like a lot of the pictures, it's like kids and then, whoa, who's that, big bird lady kid in the back. So yeah, and I was just very outdoorsy. I've found the difference between me and some other people who grew up in a different way, scared of spiders. I'm like, I'll get it. What is it? I'll put it outside. I have a lot of the just being outdoors all the time. So, and learning about a lot of, we had one class where we had this really thick book that we would go out, we would walk around in the environment and find everything. Like, oh, there's that tree. Oh, that's a whatever. So I feel like I was fully immersed in just outdoorsness. So that was amazing. I know that's not a word, but, and I got heavily into horseback riding. I taught Western and English towards the end, not when I was 6 or anything, but when I was, probably 13 to 17, I was helping teach horseback riding up there.
And were you, did you have siblings or only child?
I am, hard to say. I'm an only child. My mom's only child. My dad, my biological father, had kids before my mom, has had many after. He's not totally in my life, but I have a wonderful dad who has been around since I was 5. So he's fully my dad. But yeah, as far as our little family, it's just me and my parents.
And then, so as a kid, very outdoorsy. What do you remember, little Jennifer, age 7, picking an arbitrary number? What did you think, as I grow up or when I grow up, I want to do this?
So this is a really interesting. I just remembered and was telling a friend this yesterday. So. If we can say 9, I have a better story for that. So I really didn't have any kind of moment by moment thought about what I was going to do. I think I was really excited about outdoor stuff, of course. So there was part of me that just wanted to do anything and everything with animals. I was also into archaeology, really young. I thought that would be amazing. I even did an internship where we're like finding things and uncovering things. And but at 9, and I didn't remember this moment till way later. I wrote myself a note and I just said, when I grow up, I want to work with artists and I want to manage people, which is so bizarre because I don't remember having any understanding of what managing artists like that was even a job. But I found this after I was in my band management phase of life, and I found that in my little 9-year-old handwriting, which was just still, I can't even believe it. Cause like I said, I don't think I knew that people could, be managed as artists or whatever. I mean, consciously or whatever. But what was crazy was I didn't remember any of that until later in life. And, there was, I don't remember how old I was. It was probably like 12 or 13 or something. And we would do musicals at my school. So I was in them and I didn't have any, it's really weird. When I look back, I didn't have any memory of going, oh, I'm kind of good at this singing thing, or, oh, this is not good. So I know that I enjoyed it, but I also felt like I kind of enjoyed the acting part of it too. And it was just fun stuff to do. And my softball coach, after one of our musicals, walked up to me and he goes, I think this is something that you might be end up doing or be really good at. This is something you should stick to it. His name is George Hancock. And so that was, and funnily enough, that was kind of a moment for me of almost like a realization that I kind of have to think about what I'm going to do, in my life, whatever. So, but that was a really significant moment. So I think that kind of, those things helped to guide me, even though kind of at an unconscious, subconscious level.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was something to it. But then after I wrote that note to myself, I just kind of continued being a kid and then, and then realized later that I had set out to do that, I guess.
It's interesting when you say that because I always wonder what the moment is, or one of the moments. It sounds like you and George Hancock had one there, that somebody says something that then just leaves an impression on you and then kind of forever resonates with you. Like, you were how old when that happened?
I think I was probably about 12, maybe.
Yeah.
Said that.
Yeah. So a kid that then it resonates with you.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life. I think that's just so cool.
Yeah. And I do remember having that moment of oh, cool. And I think too, it just has to do with art, recognition by someone outside of yourself that something could be something cool. And then it kind of just adds weight to it. And it kind of fixes itself in your, in your data banks or whatever. So yeah.
And so then you go back to being a kid. There's a couple of things that happened that were, it kind of, now looking back on it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. But at the time, you're just living your life as a kid. So fast forward a little bit, you turn, I'm picking again an arbitrary date, 18. Did you go to college? Did you not go to college? Did you start working? What happened that kind of started you down any sort of a career path?
Yeah. So I actually, I decided to go, my real father had a consulting type business in San Francisco, and he wanted me to come work with him and spend time with him. This is the first time that it was kind of hey, come be with me as your dad. I don't want this to be the common theme throughout our podcast here, but anyway, so
that resonates with people too, though. Sorry to cut you off, but that.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. So we had the discussion. I don't know how to turn that noise off. Just okay. So we had that talk. It ended up being. Here's the thing. I don't have regrets. I really don't. I don't look back and go, oh, if I could have. So, but if I had to say the one, it was that I left school before I graduated. So I left about 8 months before I graduated
You're in high school or college?
high school.
Okay.
So at 17, I was going to graduate. That I think I left the school in like, maybe it was December of 80, what's it, 86, something. I left when I was 17 and it was 8 months before I was going to graduate. So, so I shouldn't have done that because I'd been there since I was 4 and I could have just graduated. Hey, and of course, looking back, 8 months is just like, oh, geez, who cares?
But at the time, it's all relative, right? You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So I basically, I ended up moving to San Francisco and I lived with my real dad and I worked with his company and then there was a larger, better position that was in LA. So I moved to LA while I was 18. Just working. I didn't have any kind of artistic leanings or anything. I was just kind of like doing a normal job.
like, what are you doing? Are you like filing papers? Are you picking up the phone?
I was actually, I did a lot of just kind of the inside work, normal like that, filing, answering phones, stuff like that, keeping schedules of some of the executives who would like go out and consult people on their businesses and stuff like that. And literally the impetus was I wanted to spend time with my real dad. That was it. So, which people can understand that, like really a life of wanting that and not having it and da-da-da. And then you're like, oh, cool. Here's an opportunity. So then I kind of had some realizations about that whole thing. Like,
did that meet your expectations and get from it what you wanted to?
Well, I have to say, in the negative and the positive. So I did end up spending time. I did realize that changing my entire life to spend time didn't make sense. I'm older now, so I have a lot more life experience to plug into all of that. But obviously, and again, I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, just how interesting it is that like the genetic, the dad person, the whatever holds so much weight when sometimes logically it doesn't make sense. Like just as people to people, whatever, like, oh, okay, well, it's not bringing me a lot of joy. Like, why am I holding on to it? I mean, these are just age old questions, but it's an interesting thing that like the dad person holds so much, when it really comes down to it, it's kind of like, okay, well, they had sex and then I, okay, logistically, so.
Yeah, like the benefit, like the actual what you gain from any human, and just because they happen to on the org chart be in the dad box doesn't necessarily mean that that's your person where you want to derive value or relationship from.
Right. And so it's kind of like, I feel like in the beginning part of my life, there was just this kind of, again, this subconscious, like, oh, I have to do these things that make sense because that's my dad, So, anyway, so in a way I got over enough of that where I was like, peace out. I'm not doing this anymore. So then I went to the East Coast and I was living with my mom and dad. And then I kind of got to I'll tell you the pinnacle moment. I was at a job interview with Macy's in the linen department. And this woman was lovely and she was really into it. And she's like, oh, you're great. And I know the reason that she thought I was great was because I kind of had that thing where I didn't totally care, but she could tell that I was present and smart and whatever. So she's like, oh, I think this is great. Let's start right away. And she brought me over to the towels and started teaching me how to fold the towels. And I was like, everything flashed. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you know what? I am so sorry that I wasted your time, but there is no way that I'm doing this job. And I'm sorry. I'm sure you'll find someone. And literally I went home. I called my friend who lived in LA, who we'd gone to school together. And I said, hey, the only way that I'm going to be able to make this happen is if you and your parents are down to kind of be my people in LA. And they were like 100%. The other side of that is that when she came to the school, she lived with me and my family, kind of a work study situation so that she could go to school. So it all made sense. And then,
Context, how old are you ish at this point?
I'm late 18.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So then my parents got back from work that day and I go, okay, guys, so I'm moving to Los Angeles. This is what I have to do. I can't, I did the interview thing and I was like, I got to get out of here. So, excuse me. So, so then, and they were cool. They understood, they knew the family, you know what I mean? So it wasn't just like off to wherever you're going to go. So then I moved to LA and I stayed with them for a while till I got my own apartment. But that year is when my band started. So in April, I think it was April. Yeah, in the summer or something is when the band started that I ended up being in close to 8 years. So, so that's what got me to LA was just not wanting to be in the linen department of Macy's on the East Coast.
Go ahead.
Oh, just the other thing is that because of the location of the boarding school, there were a lot of kids who actually had come from Los Angeles to go to the boarding school, then come back. So I had a really solid base of super cool people my age so it kind of felt like I wasn't just
out there with no support system or floating. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So give some, because I want to get to a whole bunch of different questions, but I want to make sure I'm providing a timeline here. So give kind of a abbreviated version of the band to the entertainment industry to ATN. Like, how does that progress? And I know I'm asking you to squeeze a lot in,
oh no, I mean, it's fine. So basically I was the lead singer of bands for about 12 and a half years, starting in 1989. During that time, of course, I had to have a bunch of other jobs and, that didn't pay the bills. So, but I do have to say the first band I was in, we were really, and again, this was all hindsight because I didn't know what to compare. I didn't have anything to compare our experience to. So, we had a publishing deal. We had Randy Jackson was one of our guys that was really excited about our band. He was with Sony. We had our publishing deal with Sony. We recorded our whole record at Sony Entertainment, the studios over in Santa Monica.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah, and then the staff engineer who just basically manned their studio. We were the first full length record that he produced. And he went on to his name is Mark Endert and he's done Maroon 5, he did and I'm not up on his career now, but if I could, I would bet my life that he is just still completely killing it and doing amazing things in that space. But we were his first, full length record. There's a guy named Chuck Plotkin who basically did all the Springsteen records, and he had just started being an A&R, a talent scout for Sony, and he wanted us to be his first sign. That didn't go the way we all wanted it to, but no problem.
What was your sound like? Just for what was the style?
We were kind of a 90s Fleetwood Mac. That's what people reference. Yeah,
love it.
A lot of harmonies. We kind of had a bit of a, obviously we weren't Fleetwood Mac, so we had our own kind of, there was a folky side, a funky side. We started getting a bit harder, but not in the realm of go Russia.
Right.
So, and I was kind of the Stevie Nicks one.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalie Watry, who's just genius level. She kind of had a Janis Joplin, Melissa Etheridge, a raspy, amazing tone. And the difference between the two is she kind of came out the womb that way, and I'm like, what's my signature? So, I was just I know I have pitch and I can over time I kind of had to figure out who I really was and what my, why I would stand out from anyone who just has a cool voice or a good voice, solid, technically good voice. So, but man, that was 7.5 years of life. And we toured and we did, we opened for Pauly Shore. Oh yeah, that was amazing. See, it's funny too, because our manager at the time brought it to us and we were like, there's so many things that we were just weird about that now I look back and I'm like, that's just ego and
Yeah, sure.
like, so, like our manager presented this. He and Polly had been friends for a really long time. He shared our record with Polly and Polly became a fan of like loving what we were doing. So our manager came to us and said, hey, so Polly would like you to go out on the road with him. And right away, us being young and stupid or whatever, we were like, oh, we're not doing that. That's not our thing. Polly, and so then he said, okay, well, just so you know, the smallest number of people that would see you is 900 and the largest is about 11,000. And we were like, hold a moment. So, and back, great, that's fantastic. And then, of course, we ended up going on the road and loving every second of it, loving being with Polly. He was just an amazing dude. He was so quirky in his own human, which is, of course, that's what you would expect.
Amazing. Yeah, sure.
So the year before, Spin Doctors had gone out with him.
Uh-huh.
And we started our tour. Spin Doctors were gigantic.
Yeah.
Amazing. So on the first night, I'll never forget this. Polly walks into where we are and he goes, hey, just want to let you know that last year at this time, Spin Doctors, their first show, they got booed off the stage. Have a great one, walks out. And we're like, what? It was just totally his personality and whatever. And we didn't get booed off the stage. Thank you very much. But we toured with him a bit. We also opened for Modern English.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like you have this preconceived notion of stuff, then you actually get in there and you start doing it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Like we're touring where it doesn't matter who we're opening for. And it actually ended up being a really fun, great experience also. So,
segue so you're in a band. How does that wind down to then go into what you're doing now?
Yeah. Okay. So this part will be faster because that band, we were called The Extinct. That was kind of like pinnacle music related moment in my life.
That's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. And we had some cool stuff too. Like we shared rehearsal space with Stone Temple Pilots. We were kind of in that area. Like we were playing the Whiskey with Incubus, No Doubt, Alien Ant Farm, Dramarama. We played with Agent Orange. Anyway, so that was kind of like our time, basically.
Yeah.
So that was 7.5 years. The day that band broke up, the next day, I started another band with the bass player and the drummer from the Extinct. We added a bass player and our bass player switched to guitar. So then we had a 4-piece where I was just the lead singer. That was totally it was so much fun, but it wasn't, we would play and people would love it / go, what are they doing? Because it was very much different. It was super different than the band before. The band before was like great harmonies, 4/4 time, just normal kind of, regular song structure. This was like, oh my God, like experimental, weird time signatures and all kinds of,
Were you digging it? Was it like checking your creative boxes of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, learning to sing with odd time signatures is its own monster. And it was cool because I went from something that was very much one thing into something that was very much another thing. And we just had a blast. We recorded, we had fun. We just wrote songs however we wanted. We didn't need to care about, structure stuff. That was called 3-Man Engine, which is basically 3 men and Jen. So that was about 4.5 years. So even during the first band, The Extinct, I was having all of this life experience, this band experience, and we had friends that were bands. So it was just an organic thing where I started sharing, oh, well, if you blah, blah, like just sharing our experiences with other bands. And I started realizing like how fun and cool that was, just to be able to help, basically. That was, so towards the end of the band, I actually started managing another band. And so that kind of continued through the second band, 3-man engine. So I started, but that was kind of when I started building into like managing bands, working with other musicians, and just doing what I could to kind of help out. So when the last band broke up, I started like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. I'm a band manager. And so, yeah. So, and and there were specific successes. I had a band called King Vitamin that I managed, which amazing. I loved them. They were so creative and so wonderful. So King Vitamin, and then I started managing a band called the Hanks, which I managed them for a full 8 years. And actually, I found them because I went to an alumni weekend up at my high school, the boarding school. And when some people would come back, you would do little seminars on like, hey, I'm in the music business or whatever. And so there were 2 kids in that seminar. Let me know if I'm like going.
No. You're good. You're good.
So there were 2 kids in the little seminar. I mean, literally it was like 12 people, like kids. I mean, our student body was ridiculously small.
All right.
Our first graduating class was 1 human. Second graduating class was 0. Like, I'm talking tiny.
That is tiny.
So I'm doing this, and this one kid, super cutie pie, who's still an amazing friend of mine, he kept raising his hand and asking cute questions. And some of them were like totally valid. Some of them were just like, just him being fun and funny, whatever.
Yeah.
So after that, he came up to me and said, hey, so we're playing the talent show later, wondering if you would come down and listen to our sound check. I'm like, oh my God, this is, I was just so, I don't know. It was just so cute and so awesome. And so like, go ask the person the question that you happened. Oh my gosh. So that was his Brian Harris. And so he approached me, and it was just super cute. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll come listen to your sound check. And so I went, and I was like, oh my God, this is some seriously cool stuff that they're doing. And of course, at this time, way after I went to school, they have a recording studio downstairs. They're like, they're all set up to really help all the students create art. And
yeah.
Amazing. So I left with a 4-song EP that they had recorded at the school. And before I left, I just said, hey guys, when you guys graduate, if you're like still doing the band thing and you're excited and you happen to be moving to Los Angeles, hit me up, because I feel like you guys are really fantastic and I would love to work with you. So when they graduated, we hooked up, and I started managing them. So I managed them for 8 years. And they had 2 records. They toured the US like 9 times. They were killing it, and they were an amazing, amazing band.
How do you go from managing bands to managing other talent to then not managing many bands?
Well, it was it was a severed tie, the way
intentionally?
Yeah, very intentionally. So I got to the point with on the music side where it was just such a different industry than when I started. And I knew that it was progressing, and I knew that it was becoming these new, this new universe. But, so, and I had an epiphany moment during the music management part, which was, if I do my job well, then the people that I'm managing are going to be more and more in the spotlight, the forefront of everything. People are going to listen to what they have to say philosophically, politically, spiritually, everything. And if that message from that artist is not helping the world be a better place, then that is partially my responsibility because I worked my butt off to get them to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Right, wrong, indifferent, people listen to people that are in the spotlight in any way, shape, or form, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so I kind of had the epiphany moment of that. And I'm like, okay, well, that really,
What was that? And you don't have to name specific names necessarily, but was there a moment that you observed it with somebody that you were managing, or you observed it just,
I did,
from afar?
yeah, I did observe it with an act that I was managing, where when I first started managing them, I knew that the singer just like to the core a good person, but the outward, the empathy, kindness, love for all others in ahead of himself in a way wasn't where I felt like it needed to be. But I was,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, but we can work, we can make that better. And, so I was kind of into that mode. And then I got pretty deep in and it hadn't changed. In a way, it had actually gotten worse. So that was kind of my epiphany moment. I was like, okay, well, if I'm participating in this person's life and I am a representative of them, and then therefore they represent me too,
Sure.
it just was like, okay, I need to like lean into this, dig in, and really cultivate the type of human that I want to be working with. Cultivate my idea of who I want to be working with, and then kind of set the bar
Yep.
where I hadn't set the bar before. Specifically, obviously, I'm not like,
Yeah, there's some line. You got some boundaries or standards or whatever. Yeah, of course,
yeah,
of course.
exactly. So at that point, I stopped managing that band, and I was very vocal about why, because I didn't want to just leave it in a gray area.
Hmm.
And
And then,
I,
so how do you go to other talent? How do you then just start this
yeah,
path of other talent?
so basically, all during, I guess, the last probably 4 years of me working with musicians, I had a really close friend, have still a friend, but I had a really close friend who was an actor, and he kept saying, like, you should work with actors. And I think it partially just had to do with, conversations that I would have with him about the bands I was managing, also him hearing me on the phone with the bands I was managing, just the vibe of all of that he perceived of me. So it was just really good timing, because it was kind of at the point where I was like, okay, I'm not going to manage that band anymore. I, being an independent manager too, like I had a few offers from companies to join up with them, but I just didn't want to do the like cubicle and here's the bands you have to care about and work with. I knew that I would not survive. I would not, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be, happy and enjoying my life. So it was kind of just right around the time when I made those decisions, like, okay, well, maybe it's not, maybe music isn't where I need to be. I know I want to and need to be working with artists, people who create things, whatever that is. And then my friend, right, time coincidence, you should really check out managing actors. So I had no idea management is something that I knew the job of it. I also had quite a few executive assistant, personal assistant type jobs, as my day job throughout that whole time. So,
Mhm.
And when you're working with someone who's a celebrity, you have to be like 25 steps ahead. There can't even be the tiniest mistake of anything. And, you get such a broader perspective of what needs to go down to make sure that everything is streamlined and awesome for that person that you're working for. So,
Mhm.
in addition to the band management stuff and those executive assistant positions, I was like, okay, I know how to do this general job, but now it's just the specifics. So one of the things that you have to do when you get breakdowns, which is the whole, lays out all of the roles that come out from casting on a daily basis, moment by moment. You need to get 3 people to say, like, basically, like, no, she's not crazy, and she, whatever they say. I've worked with this person. They're good at whatever. So because of my experience working with these, some of these celebrities, I had those contacts. Like I was kind of the via on some of the stuff. Like the manager would contact me to make sure that their talent would be there on time, all that stuff. So I got those letters done and I got breakdowns. And at the time, I think it was like, I don't know, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was kind of like, it was a monthly, it's like, okay, money's going out. And at the time I just had my one friend who I managed my one person apartment with, so very quickly I had 11 clients and I had some, just beginner's luck, I would say, because I really didn't know exactly what I was doing. I remember I had to, I was instant messaging with an actor manager that I had met when I was closing a deal. Like I got my clients a couple guest stars. But I was like, okay, cool. What, typing like, what's a honey wagon? What's a, because I just had no idea about this stuff. So, and also like they offered this, what should I do? And so, I got a little assistance that way. One thing I realized right away is that being in LA and being a manager of actors was night and day compared to being a music manager. Like I just started not telling anybody what I did because it was such a huge influx of like, oh, I have my resume in my bag and, all of that here.
For actors or for music?
Actors, no.
Oh.
Polar opposite with band management.
Yeah.
I would tell people what I did and they would be like, that's a job? Yes. It's a very intense, crazy level, blood, sweat, and tears job, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh, that thing that you didn't think was a job. My whole life is that. So,
right.
But on the actor management side, it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, so, in the beginning stages too, I went from one client to 11, but the 9 of the other 10 were just like, oh, you're fun. Let's see what we could, the meeting was about 30 seconds. Like, oh, great. Let's do this. So, now it's much different than that. But, so the segue exactly. So that's how I started, was just in my apartment, breakdowns, having some people that I was submitting every day and hoping I could figure out what I needed to do as I went along. So, but the segue to it becoming a bit more professional, the final remnant, which kind of belittles it, of my music side, was I continued doing my music showcasing during South by Southwest, which I did for 9 years in a row. So, I would request all this music. I would hear all these bands, and I would determine who's going to play what slot in because I had a venue during South by Southwest. So I continued doing that. But late 2008, which is when I started the management side in the beginning of 2008, the actor management. So late in the year, the sponsor that I had for my showcasing completely fell out. And we're talking like 35 to 40K that I would have to get sponsored.
Come up with, yeah.
So that was gone. And I was like, oh my God, like what? And so I was like, okay, well, I already have bands confirmed. So I can't just not do my showcase. So I reached out to that same person who helped me, talked me through the booking. And I said, hey, I have 11 clients. I really am excited about the actor management stuff, of course, but I have to save my showcase. So will you just look at my roster and see if there's anyone you might want to, because I'm trying. So, because heading into pilot season too, which at that point, now I understand that it doesn't matter because the people that I was managing weren't ready for pilots. They weren't going to book pilots necessarily.
Right.
So, but she said, okay, we'll take all of them once you save your showcase and that's all smooth and you're back in LA from Austin. Let's just have a meeting and determine what we're going to do. So that all came to pass. And then I started working at that company after I got back. So I was there for 6.5 years. I started as senior vice president, then I went to executive vice president. And then in late 2015 is when I decided to start my own company. And so that's when I left and started ATN Entertainment.
And what is the best part about your job?
Oh man. It's interesting because I have been, I'm not going to use the word lucky because I just feel like, there's too many dark times and blood, sweat, and tears to call that luck. But I wake up every morning, right? And I'm just excited about everything that I get to do that day. And it's every day. So, and because I know how all the little grunt work, who cares stuff ends up flowing into the stream of like success and
stuff
work
that matters.
Yeah. I actually don't. And I think it's just been my perspective since I was in the band, in my band myself. It's like, flyers or what, but that it's getting you to where you want to go. So, I have fun things. I love finding a new client that I'm just really excited about and kind of feeling that there's something really cool and special there and being able to then action that, like there's, so that's a really great part. A client's first co-star that they book is amazing. It's an amazing, joyful moment that is fantastic. Obviously all the way up, I have to say that just recently, one of our clients just booked like their life-changing gig. That's just amazing. And I've been working with her close to 8 years. We haven't announced it in the trades yet, so I don't want to. When is this airing or whatever?
This will probably be 2 weeks from now. So
yeah. So I'm gonna like keep it on the whatever.
Okay.
But,
Gotcha.
So, but yeah. So and this was 8 years in the making. She manifested this exact gig, which is just proof that there's more to life than just working hard, and there's an expansion of that. So yeah, so that obviously that's huge. When we started working together 8 years ago, all we had was like her amazing talent and her amazing drive and her ability to know exactly who she is and how she fits into this, and that it's the only thing. There was no plan B, all the things. And then at that time, someone like me who just believed in her and was still learning what the hell I was supposed to be doing, because it's a constant, you're constantly just learning new things and expanding what you're able to do. But I think, so yeah, just the fact that I wake up and I'm like, okay, cool. I know what my to-do list is. It's some stupid stuff. It's stuff that like, okay, I have to talk to those guys and that's not going to be happy and fun, but I'm, or whatever, like, but so it's finding new talent that I'm excited about. It's the first booking. It's the second booking. It's the 18th booking. It's the, I also experience a lot of joy when my clients are able to go do amazing things based on acting as the core, like one of my clients went and stayed in East Africa to shoot some cool thing at a resort. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing pictures of her hotel room, which is just like this expansive whatever with a gym and, like all these things where I'm just like, that is so amazing that I have been able to help and contribute to these guys being able to just travel and experience the world and do all this stuff. But based on their talent and their acting ability and their hard work that got them there. And we've totally expanded into the production side too. So it's like, we're going to start being able to have something to do with the narrative, like what needs to be out there and communicated to people and why and all of that. So that side is amazing and very new in the big picture of how long I've been doing this. So
So it sounds like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if I'm kind of paraphrasing, it sounds like you get super passionate about, number one, doing all the little stuff, the grunt, your words, the grunt work, the dirty work. Like, it actually can be energizing for you because you know that everything has a purpose flowing up to what matters. And the end, and the cherry on top is that in your corner of the universe, I mean, you're helping to change somebody's life to accomplish their dreams, right? I mean,
absolutely.
What's
that's definitely it. I mean, one thing that I tell when I'm meeting with potential new actors and stuff, I remember there was somebody that I worked with in the past that was like, hey, we're not curing cancer here, and I I would always have the thought, like, that is true. We're not curing cancer, but we are having we have the ability to have an amazingly huge impact on someone's life. Someone who since 5 or 6 years old was like, this is what I'm doing. There's no plan B. This is all I ever want to do. So the fact that we're able to contribute to that and make some, and then the ripple effect is amazing. Right?
I was literally just going to say that 100%.
Yeah. Cause it's not just this one human who gets to accomplish whatever. It's like that affects their family, that affects the future generations of their family, that affects every single person. And this is where it kind of comes down to what I was saying before. It affects every single person who ever hears them speak about anything, so it's like, it can create, it can affect change, just us doing the type of job that needs to be done for the artist in that capacity. So,
well, and then when you're talking about, actors, you're talking about some extension or producing, right? It's connected to storytelling, which then has emotions and response. People have human emotions or responses to whatever those stories are, those actors are acting, whether it's you're making me laugh, you're making me cry, like they're all playing some role in that, which then sets off people's mood and emotion, hopefully in a positive way, or makes them feel things. The ripple effect, you said it. I'm like such a believer of that. And you nailed it. You nailed it. What's
the other thing, negative emotion can also, create an emotional response that creates some kind of, so it's like an actor's ability to impact someone with emotion it's incredibly important and incredibly huge. And, sports and entertainment are the things that bring the most number of people together for a common cause, for a common intention, a common excitement, common love, whatever it is. So it's like being able to just affect people in that way is immense. And it's so important. So it's kind of like, that whole thing of like, oh, we're not curing cancer. Like, that's true, because we're not curing cancer, but we are contributing to something that can make
a human connection. You're talking, it's a human connection, whether it is forged by, to your point, like pain or not, I don't want to call it a negative emotion, an emotion that makes you feel pain, or an emotion that makes you laugh, or whatever it is. It is still a human connection that you're experiencing, and other people connect with that, which I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's the basis of like fandom and all of that. And obviously it can go to a kooky place, just like everything in life. But, and to me, whether people want to say like, oh, I'm just an actor, or you're just an actor, shut up about your views. Like, there's all that stuff, which again, I can understand that people, there are people who don't want to be preached to about anything, and that's totally their right. But there is an inherent responsibility from my perspective that comes along with what any actor knows they're getting into, because it's, when an actor starts doing this and they start having some successes, or maybe even before they have any success, there is something where they go, I want to be there.
Yeah, you're a public figure of some sort, whether you,
right.
Whether you asked to be or not, or whether your voice should be heard any more than any other person's who's not on a public figure. Like,
Yeah.
to your point, the reality is that it is, and you have to be, I'm air quoting, responsible with that, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, and the other thing too is I have very specific and maybe differing views than other managers, which is totally fine because we're all here. There may be an actor who's just like, no, I just want to act, and that's, whatever. I'm just doing that, and I don't need to be responsible for anything, and that's cool too. And then there's a manager who probably shares that, and then they're great to go work together. But on my side of things, and like I said, it came from the band days. It's like, I'm not, I'm cool for like neutral and above.
mm-hmm.
I'm not forcing anybody to get up on a soapbox and talk about how they feel about God or not or whatever.
Sure.
But I've put in a lot, this has been my life. It will continue to be my life. And I want to be able to impact things positively at the end of the day. That's why.
Yeah. I want to get to three more questions and then go to rapid fire here. What is the so first one? What is the underbelly or the not so glamorous part of your job?
Let's see. Not so well. I'm so behind the scenes. I don't know that anything is glamorous in my job, but
or industry, job or industry.
Oh, well, I can comment on the industry for sure. I feel like there are quite a few individuals who are in this, who are in the representation business that probably shouldn't be. And I'm not talking like super gross stuff. I'm just talking about, I have had comments before of like, oh God, actors are just so freaking crazy. Like that person, to me, if they really feel that way, like I can see people just being like, oh, hey, I don't know, just
venting like a daily vent or something about,
saying something like, hey, we're all in the same club. Oh, actors are so great, and not really meaning it. But there are people that mean it. And those are the ones I'm talking about. To me, there's an aspect of that there's some sort of just disassociation from art and what artists are and how the artist brain works and how the artist's spirit feels. Because there's that aspect to demean that is almost just sucking the joy out of the entire reason that we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. So, and it can come from a moment of an actor wanting to do theater because they need that, which I completely understand. But I feel like there are some reps who are just like, it doesn't make any money. It's not going to progress your career. What the hell are you doing? And really kind of like someone, then the artist is like, okay, you're my rep. That's what you're telling me. I feel this way. Am I supposed to just shut up and do what, there's so much pressure and fear and weirdness that is, I feel, in certain ways is inspired by people in the industry toward the actor, and proof positive by a lot of the meetings that I've had with actors that I'm looking at working with. And there's a fear. There's like, sometimes like, ooh, what do I have to say to make sure that they think I'm worthy of, this stuff, which I have to kind of at the beginning just go, okay, we don't need any like battered actor syndrome. It's not okay. It's not cool. And the same thing sometimes when I'm meeting with an actor and they say, oh, I have a great agent and I really love them. And, and on my side of things, the immediate follow-up question is how many auditions do they get for you?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously agents have whatever expanse of jobs they choose to have, but at the core, it's number of auditions. So, and I'll get a response sometimes like, oh, well, they got me 3 in the last year. And to me, that number is way too low to have any kind of career progress whatsoever. So then it kind of goes, then I'm like, okay, so, but you said you love that. What's the love part? Well, they haven't dropped me. And they'll get back to me within a couple weeks when I email. I'm like, oh my God, can we please bring the bar up and remove all the scarcity and fear and worry? Because then we're really living, like, you know, and everyone needs to be accountable for their job, even though it's so hot stuff to be, you know, a representative of actors. It's just, again, it's just like the polar opposite. Nobody gave a crap when I was a music manager as far as that being an actual job. Now it's like the polar opposite, and you can get drunk with power. I mean, and it's not okay. Like our job is to service the artist and the actor in front of us and be transparent and communicate what's really up. And, you know, and here's the other thing. I'm not trying to be all preachy and like, oh, how awesome are we? And blah, blah, blah. But I feel strongly that the bar needs to come up. It needs to be, you know, we need to be accountable for every single move that we make or that we don't make. And we need to be communicative with our clients. And it's a team, you know, I've said it a zillion times, like I'm no one's bitch.
Yes.
Opted to not say the S word, but like, but
you can say shit.
Okay, good. It's hot shit. So, but I'm just saying, like, I create this environment in the way that I would want it to be if I were the artist, if I were the actor. So, you know, we work together and we are accountable to each other. And, you know, I have something that the actor does not have. And that's why I would be a part of anything, so that they can do the art part and I can do everything else. And we're very hands-on and we do that. You know, I mean, there are times where it's like, oh, you know, my friend sent me this thing and yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. But you're still an actor and you still have to have a bar set and you still have to be managed, even with your friend. You know?
Sure.
If there's paperwork, it's business. So I feel strongly, and I've had a bunch of like agent related kind of epiphanies over the last year or so. You know, and at the end of the day, it is my job to ensure that everyone in the actor's empire that we're building, right, does their job. So, but I also have my own job. So it can't just be that, you know, and I work with a lot of great agents. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like we also are contributing to progressing the career. So it just has to be, you know, it has to be a team effort and there needs to be good communication. We need to all be on the same page as to what we're doing. I don't even remember what the question was.
Well, you answered it. It was what was kind of the less glamorous or underbelly part. And it sounds like raising the bar, I mean, on service and expectations and what you as a, you know, I'll call it a client, right, it should expect from the people that you're paying to help manage your career.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. It's just transparency and communication because the job is what it is. So like you're either doing that or you're not doing that. And if you're not doing it, you shouldn't be, you know, I'll tell you, every actor that we work with, I know what they expect of us. And if we're not doing that, we need to be communicating, here's what's happening. I know your expectation is this. This is how it's varied a little. I mean, obviously COVID just threw it all out.
Sure. Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's like, the thing that just hurts my soul is knowing that there are actors out there and they have a certain expectation of their reps. Their reps are not doing that. And the actor's staying because they think that if they leave, they're not going to have the thing that they need. Like that
Options.
Is so, you know, and reps know what the expectation is. So, so that's like, to me, that's, and you know, there's a bunch of the obvious underbelly things, the Me Too movement and the blah, blah, and the diversity and the LGBTQIA plus and all of that. And it's like, you know, there's so much weirdness in regard to that. Like, so what I consider just being a good, solid human that's out the window in regard to all of the marginalized talent. And like, I can't say it's unbelievable because it's so prevalent and obvious and there, and things have gotten better. But, if I'm looking to manage someone, I have a meeting, and if I care about them and I can see that we want the same things and they're really solid at their craft and continuing to work on their craft, nothing else matters. So it's like, and being a bit more specific, sorry, but white people are always going to be cast in things. There's never going to be a time where it's like, oh no, there's no more white people. We just want, so it's like now things are starting to balance out, and it is so necessary. And, in the area of like maneuvering and navigating this to get, the pendulum always swing, the pendulum goes bam, and then it goes bam, and then it goes bang, ding, ding. And hopefully when things settle, we have an actual true equality, like a real one. And we have it monetarily, and we have it human wise, and we just are able to like perpetuate this entire artistic endeavor that we're doing as a human race in a way that is fully representative of all of the people that are involved in the human race.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I see it. I feel you. I can feel your energy about it, like jumping through the screen. And I just think it's so no, I'm serious, but I just think it's so fantastic that is not only your perspective, but just that you're living your truth around it and trying to drive and operate your business like true to how you are, and not necessarily always being responsive to what the industry is. I think that alone is worth patting yourself on the back for, right? And worth recognizing. So what is if you're giving yourself, so I have two more questions, and what advice would you give your, in a couple of sentences so that it can really like strike home with our audience, what advice would you give your younger self?
That's really, it's funny because I've thought about this before, because I was like, ooh, what if somebody asked me to contribute to one of those books where they're like, you're older now, what would you have said? And, like each person gets a page of the book or whatever.
What are your 2 sentences on the page?
I think, maybe one of them would be just, it's so like, I think this is the problem that I've had with this before, because it's like the things that I would say, and it's very specifically like you look back on your life and you go, okay, well, if I had applied this then, I maybe wouldn't have experienced so much, a darker time or something that was, but it also feels very kind of weirdly preachy, because I wouldn't expect someone to hear that sentence and go, aha, like, ooh, I'm going to do that now. But I can just, based on anything that I experienced in my younger years, that if I would have applied, would have made things better. Just don't allow anyone to make you feel less than you actually are. And it's so general and like la la la, but it's true. Like the moments that I look back and I go, oh, I kind of took a weird course at that point, or I spent some time doubting myself, which was just totally pointless, because obviously that doesn't accomplish anything. It's kind of know thyself and all the things that have traveled down through the trillions of years, if you want, I don't know. But like, it's kind of like those were the moments where, allowing something that plants a seed of self-doubt, and then you start doing things differently than you would have otherwise. Like leaving school and going and hanging out with my real dad in San Francisco, that is not something that I should have done. And it's kind of like I allowed myself to come to a place where it was somebody else's ideas or thoughts about how things should maybe be, or, and even societally, like, oh no, it's very important that I allow my real father to kind of mend fences and do that whole thing. And in a way, I see that is true, but also I could have stayed in school. I could have finished, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying has, and that's your obviously personal example, which resonates totally. But what you're saying has, um, I believe from just my own personal experience and talking with just friends and humans, that
Yeah.
what you're saying is so true. And that I don't know if it is that you learn it only by like not listening to yourself and listening to kind of outside influences. And then you're like, well, fuck, that didn't make me happy. So now let me just listen to at least like if I fall on my own sword kind of thing.
Right.
But I think what you're saying makes total sense and will resonate with a lot of people because what you're really talking about is at any point being your authentic self, right? And honoring what you believe to be real and true to yourself versus outside expectations of you. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's just a lot in there too, because you have to continue. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm continuing to understand myself more and what I can contribute and what I need to work on to be stronger in areas that I can contribute more. But I mean, obviously with everything that I've said here, it's kind of like I decided a long time ago that what I'm passionate about and what I want to contribute to, it really has to do with being in the service of others.
Mm-hmm.
And not to the detriment of service to myself and like keeping my service to myself. That's like, but just those moments of, I still need to read and experience and have things that are just very much my own. So I'm continuing to be happy and filled with joy based on just me, myself, and I. But it is that that continuing, and I think that concept needs to be more prevalent in everyone, because being in service to others doesn't mean that you're neglecting yourself or that you're so martyrdom selfless that nothing else matters. It's like, if you can, to me, that's like a really solid husband and wife relationship. That's like, if you are being in service to the other person, then you're being, anyway, it's kind of what I think could be a big a big change in the world, is if more people had that perspective and able to have empathy even in what they would consider to be the worst scenarios ever. Like, this person hates babies. That's so weird. Like the nth degree of like, what? How?
Yep.
But being able to consistently practice empathy, actively put yourself in somebody else's shoes, see what that means, and admire other people for exactly who they are and what they have going on. I feel like we could be such, as the human race that we are, that alone could just make such a huge difference. And I think it's just unbelievably important. And I've learned, that's another thing, I guess, that could be my second sentence. That could be my second novella to add to what we're talking about. But, it's just kindness, joy, all of those things. And it's not just have it, it's like work on it. Like, do a little bit more kindness to people, a little bit more finding the joy in something rather than just the, have to do that thing. Yeah. But it's going somewhere, it's leading somewhere. So
I love that as a blueprint. It's a solid blueprint. What in my last question, then I'm going to rapid fire, which is unrelated to anything that we talked about. Okay. My last question, in one sentence, how do you define success?
Success to me is waking up every day and loving what you get to do. Truly.
I love that. Clean, simple, and easy for anyone to understand.
Yeah. And hopefully, obviously, that leads to, yeah. So, the money part is good because it allows you the time and energy to do things that you want to do, more of them, etc. There are people who have very like hardcore, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. Hopefully it's something that gives them joy and actually help. I know I've experienced it. You buy a cool pair of shoes, they feel good, you like them, you feel, there's an energy that goes along with that brings a bit of happiness or whatever it brings to you. On the flip side of that, on my side, um, on my side of things, what I've found is it's just money and all that. It's an energy. It's like it flows in, it flows out. It can bring stuff along with it. It's really positive. I've never, just in my pursuit, I've never wanted money as the thing. I wanted the experience. I wanted to be helping people and all of that. And, it's, the motivation has never been money for me, but I completely get what that can do. It's money in a way for some people is almost like art to others. It's like it creates an emotional impact. Anyway, that's
it being the byproduct is not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of what you love. Yeah. Agreed. What, so I'm going to go into, actually, before I do rapid fire, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Okay. Well, we have Instagram, which is at ATN Empire. So messages there, etc.
I like it. It's boss-like. Empire. Good for you.
Boss-like. And let's see. I mean, we have an email address for anyone who wants to submit their stuff, which is submissions, plural, at atnentertainment.com. I mean, both of those will get to me. So, me and the company, of course.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go into rapid fire. These are unrelated to what we talked about, maybe 5 or 6 questions, just first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Brick or stone?
Oh, sorry. I didn't really take to heart the nothing to do with what we were talking about. So, stone, I think.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Sun or moon?
Moon.
Astronaut or deep sea diver?
Sea diver.
Ryan Reynolds or George Clooney?
Oh. I'm not choosing one. I'm saying both for very different reasons, but I can't choose between them. They're both.
Emma Thompson or Meryl Streep?
Meryl Streep.
Pearl Jam or Nirvana?
How can you do that one? That's like even worse than the Ryan Reynolds George Clooney thing. Oh gosh. I really can't. I love both of them so much I can't even express. So I can't.
Can't do it. Okay, last one. Metallica or Guns N' Roses?
Metallica.
Really? Metallica? Okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, the Guns N' Roses thing has just morphed into just a whole slew of whatevers, and Metallica is just solid. I mean,
That's fair. So if I'm taking an island record, I think Use Your Illusion 2 is on my desert.
Okay. Yeah. See, also, I came I was in my own band, obviously, but then I did the showcase for South by Southwest. So my favorite band of all time is a band called Frightened Rabbit.
Yeah.
So, so it's very widespread. But yeah, I kind of, when a lot of my friends were kind of into the hair bands and hair metal and all of that stuff, I was Stevie Wonder. I was on that side of things, a bit Prince and, all of that. So I kind of came into all of the, even Metallica, all of that after, I heard what they did before rather than experiencing it as it was going. So yeah, I kind of have, the majority of my friends though, girls were always just, they were we're talking Skid Row. I never went there. I was always.
I will say this though, I saw Stevie Wonder in concert and he was it was amazing. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't see Prince. I saw Michael Jackson, but I didn't see Prince and I should have.
And see, me coming from the music business, it's amazing the number of live shows that I have not seen. I saw Billy Idol twice. Those were my 2 first concerts. I was in 87 in San Francisco when I was there. And I've seen so few. I mean, I haven't seen Stevie. I didn't see Prince. I haven't seen Michael. I mean, I didn't see Michael. They're just like a ton. My parents are really trying to get me into it too. They're like, Elton John, Rolling Stones, like Eagles. I mean, all of these I really want to see before they are just not performing.
Yeah. Well, before we get out of here, anything else that you want to add before I wind us down?
There was actually one thing that I thought of that I wanted to say, but might have to do this again. No, I think the main thing is a lot of the things that we all know should be in place just in life really need to start being in place in the industry, because at the end of the day, we are all the gatekeepers of what's going to be able to be available to the rest of us, to allow some resonating moments, to allow some emotion to come in, to allow all of this stuff. And it's really, our whole industry is supposed to be in the service of the artist. So, these are broad statements, but I feel like it's so important just everyone to just, know their truth, operate in it as much as possible on a daily basis, and love what we do. I mean, we're luckier than shit to be able to do what we get to do.
I love that. That's an excellent note to close on. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed talking with you. This was wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I had a great time. So thanks.
Awesome. Enjoy your West Coast weather there. I'm on the East Coast, so we're a little colder here.
It's actually been pretty cold here, surprisingly. But yes, I will.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen.
For both of us.
There you go. Thank you. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How Did Her Career Get There? And again, my guest is Jennifer Aurianne DaRe. So thank you again.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How did her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.